Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Lorepod podcast. I'm your host, Dakota Morgan, coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona. Hope you all been well, staying nerdy, staying all this stuff. Today is a really good throwback episode for y'all. We're talking about something from 98, a little bit of 99, if I remember correctly here, and 2001. So it lasted for a little bit of time, but we're going back to the 90s, early 2000s. And why, might you ask? Well, we're going big. We're going kaiju. We are going Godzilla 1998, the animated series. That's right, everybody. We're talking about the 98 Godzilla. Strap on, because boy, do I love that movie. And this TV show makes up a lot of kaiju fans' childhood. So let's dive into the lore, shall we? Godzilla 1998, the series. Well, I mean, it's just technically Godzilla, the series, but it lasted 2 seasons, lasted from 98 to 2001. It definitely did take a little bit of time for that animation, to say the least. 2D animation, might I add. Similar style to the Ghostbusters animated series. And the long forgotten, but should be remembered. I think we could cover that here on the channel. The Men in Black animated series. We are 100% going to cover that here. Fuck yeah, let's do this. All right. This is a sequel series to the 98 movie, of course. And part of the early episodes, I think a little bit later on as well, were actually pieces of the original sequel film script that is out there that you can read, and maybe one day we will actually cover that as well. That's another fucking brilliant idea. Maybe we'll cover that too. Welcome to the laid backness of the Lorepod podcast. But you take a look here. I mean, they use bits and pieces of the original script. The movie was never made. A little backstory. Movie was never made, but they put together the script, hired the actors, yada yada. Actually made a few different pieces for it too out there. Again, we'll save that for another episode. Some of which included bees abducting people. Giant bees. Now, if you remember correctly in the lore here, these monsters and the giant monsters in here, like Godzilla, and then the ones you're going to see in this TV series, as well as stuff from the unused movie, was made by the nuclear radiation in the Pacific. The monsters are all animals. Vaguely. We'll get into some of the other stuff later. But due to the French nuclear testing, and all the animals on the islands there mutated into giant monsters. Classic, simple, straight to the point. Love it. So a little bit of backstory here. Let's start from the beginning and start from the top. We start off with Nick Natopoulos. It's Tatopoulos. Discovers an egg still surviving. If you remember at the end of the 97 movie, or the end of the 98 movie, an egg did survive. Now, Nick actually discovers this egg in a destroyed Madison Square Garden as a baby emerges. And he gets covered in all this egg goo and such, and the baby actually does disappear once the military does arrive. I should also make it clear, we do have some returning cast members from here. Nick Tatopoulos, we also have the Colonel, as well as a few others as well. Actually, I take that back. The actor, no, we don't. Yeah. There's a whole thing there. But, continuing on with the story here of this, Nick gets his friend Randy Chapman from the movie, the tech and kind of allergy guy there from the movie, to kind of team up with them in a sense here. And then, of course, we have a French spec ops, Monique, who does arrive. We do have the return of Audrey as well, and as well as the scientist that we did see in there, Dr. Chapman, who still has the hots for Nick. We do see Animal, the cameraman, return, and of course Mayor Elbert as well. Hicks was one of the original people, though. Hicks was one of the original characters returning, still played by the actor from the movie as well. Now, continuing on the story here of what is going on in this world, that Godzilla baby does return a little bit bigger, to say the least, more juvenile, not as big as the adult, so it's still a little bit, still big. And it gets older and larger as the series goes on. I should make it clear, they do explain why, because if you remember right, in the movie, Godzilla is born asexual, lays a bunch of eggs, and is born already pregnant, right? This one, they explained it was actually the runt of the litter and could not lay eggs. But it did give it the ability to breathe that green atomic fire, though, as we know. It was more like a flamethrower in this one than anything, like a very strong flamethrower. And from this, they do move on and discover that the kaiju in there are from the same testing sites as we mentioned from around there. But the animals have moved across the world. They fly, they go underground, they swim to the oceans, they appear across the United States, South America, Europe, everywhere. We have so many things. And of course, we do have some man-made stuff as well. There was even a nanite episode where you could tell that it was the early days of nanites, to say the least. So we have a whole nanite blob monster thing, eating trash. And in New York City, that'd be doing pretty damn good. As the seasons did go on in this show, it was shown that yes, the mutants, as they were called, they weren't called kaiju in this universe, they're just called mutants, which, give or take, I kind of like. Godzilla proved to the military, Hicks, and everyone else that actually it's very much there for the people. And if you remember correctly, when I said that it did first appear, it covered Nick in that goo, well, it actually thinks Nick is its mother. So Even though it's huge, and later on, and it goes through 2 seasons of shit, it still thinks it's his mom and still has some relation to him. So it actually is kind of like protecting, hangs out around him and stuff like that. Very interesting, but still smart enough. And they're always pretty like, Godzilla might kill us, we don't know. But it proves that it does care about people. But unless you start shooting at it, then it's going to get pissed off. As, any rightful person would be. Now, as I was saying, the seasons do go on at the 2 seasons here. We do have aliens that appear in this show. That is right. You can't have Godzilla without some alien connection, to say the least. And, even in King of the Monsters, when they say Ghidorah came from the space, people say there's not in the Legendary universe. There fucking is. But aliens do appear, and we have Godzilla the series version of Giant Monsters All Out Attack. That's right, the classic Godzilla movie. This is later on. We do get to see almost all the mutants you do see, as well as a surprise cameo, which we'll get to in a second. All the mutants do go around. They're controlled by the aliens and go around and wreak havoc across the world. Not like Final Wars, but a little bit better. And, of course, as I was saying, that surprise cameo is Mecha Godzilla. That is right. We have a 98 version of Mecha Godzilla who's so fun and reminds me of Mecha Violator from the Spawn series. And how do they do that? One might ask. Well, you see, they used the body, the corpse that was taken of the adult Godzilla. The U.S. military took it and began experimenting on it and dissecting it and shit, which we would actually have seen in the movie, the live-action movie, which thank God we didn't. But they were using that and actually made a Mecha Godzilla. They replaced the parts the aliens did and took control of it and made a Mecha Godzilla. It is the coolest shit, though. I swear to God. That was a brilliant... We were like, wow! And the aliens were replacing people as well. This was a whole alien invasion with giant monsters staying in the 98 universe, and it was fantastic. Of course, so it does repel the aliens and becomes its own kind of thing. So this show, I want to say, it's just brilliant. Like, you think of, look at this shit. Like, you have Mecha Godzilla, you have mutants all over the world, you have all this shit. You have the French government, which, by the way, was a good nod. They didn't have the original French agent come in because he probably was either fired or transferred somewhere else. He might be dead. Philippe was still alive. Yeah, he was still alive. There was a phone call, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it was. So we have our new agent in there as well. The new agent, she's like the whole seductress kind of thing. And, we have new characters added. The tech guy. So we have all the new stuff in there. And I really, really, really... Randall, the yellow robot as well. That was a cool thing about it. Like every episode is destroyed. It's kind of like their Kenny, basically. That was before around the same kind of time of South Park. So there was their version of Kenny. The yellow kind of Mars rover looking bot that they would always build to do shit would always get destroyed and be like, wah! Just end up dying. So we have such a beautiful thing here. And I think a lot of people slept on this Godzilla this series. I know as time goes on, it gets more difficult to watch, but I think it's been on some streaming. I, of course, own a DVD. And you can usually pick it up at like local user stores or whatever, like a Zia or something like that. But overall, though, there's Godzilla, the little bit of lore from Godzilla the series. Now, I could cover here, it would take so long. It would be such a long episode covering all the episodes, covering all the mutants, all the government shit. And there's Godzilla-centric episodes too, where Godzilla just has to survive against the U.S. military. So I could cover all that, but let's move on forward, folks. If you enjoyed this episode of the Lorepod podcast, then be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. It greatly appreciates it as well if you leave a review. We really do appreciate it here. And of course, in the description box down below, you can check out the Twitch, CoderX97, my social media for all my fun adventures, and of course, the YouTube channel. If you're on there, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and stay tuned for more stuff on there, Dakota Morgan channel. More stuff of paleo, dino times, video games, and other pop culture. And of course, as always, everyone, stay classy, will you? And also, stay nerdy.